We are live. Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. We got the whole crew back in today, guys. Hopefully, you made your fantasy playoffs because it's playoff time now, guys. We're talking fantasy playoffs. The time has come. The long foreseen season is finally coming to an end, sadly. But we still got 3 more great weeks to talk about some waiver pickups and, of course, starts and sits. But today, it's our waiver wire show, guys. So let me introduce the crew as always. Coach Chips, what's going on, brother?
It's going good, brother.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Coach John, what is going on?
Nothing. Just excited to watch some Patriots get hopefully not killed tonight. But yeah, I'm excited.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it should be a pretty good matchup overall. Hopefully, those who need some fantasy players to hit tonight, hopefully they hit for you. And you can come back and continue to listen to us throughout the rest of the playoff season here. So before we get started, I had to do something for one of my fantasy leagues here. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. It's basically one of these fantasy leagues that I created. It involves Marvel and getting the stones and stuff. It's pretty cool. But I won the most points on the season here. Killed it, crushed it. I've been bragging about it for the last 3 weeks, but let me go back here. But finally, the time has come, so we're going to roll this real quick, and then we'll get back into our regular scheduled program. Need to have
so sketchy.
Soul Stone.
Oh, the worst possible one, I swear. God.
Cost.
All right, well, if any of my league mates are tuning in, another Stolzone. We can't seem to get anything else in this goddamn league. So yeah, it is what it is. But let's get back to the fantasy world here now, guys. So we got some news to talk about, and we'll get into that right now. All right, guys. So let's get into that fantasy news now. A couple things, a lot of injuries. Coach Gibbs mentioned this before the show started. Bunch of things going on. Tyler Huntley, concussion. Tyler Boyd, dislocated finger. T. Higgins, hamstring. Russell Wilson is in the concussion protocol. Mike Boone, ankle injury. Kendall Hilton pulled his hammy. Damian Pierce had a pretty nasty ankle injury. Jeff Wilson left last night with a hip injury. Daniel Bellinger with his ribs. Mike White with multiple rib injuries. Corey Davis, head injury. Kenny Pickett back in the concussion protocol once again. Deebo Samuel's a pretty much significant high ankle sprain from what I'm hearing already. Dontrell Hilliard, a neck injury. He's already been ruled out for week 15. And, of course, the weirdest little small signing, T.Y. Hilton signs with Dallas. So, again, I don't really think that has any real value for us to talk right now. But let's talk about Deebo Samuels. If he's gone for the rest of fantasy season here, who do you expect to take that kind of production? Does George Kittle become a top 3 tight end? I mean, I don't know if you guys think of him as a top 3 tight end, or does Brandon Ayuk really jump into maybe a top 20 option now?
For me, in my opinion, with Deebo Samuel out of the way, I don't think anyone is going to step into like this role or get that production that Deebo is getting, but it does solidify all the other pieces. Like you feel much more comfortable with Brandon Ayuk. You feel obviously super comfortable with Christian McCaffrey, and you feel good with George Kittle going forward. So it just takes a lot, like one player out of the equation, but everyone else should just benefit. I don't think any new person is going to step in, but it's nice for the pieces that are there.
I just think it's going to be Ayuk. I still have no faith in Kittle at all. It's just like he's getting the targets, he's getting the looks too, but like he's just going to be you're going to start him. So maybe he does get a little boost, but I don't know. I don't have him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to be the Christian McCaffrey show week in and week out, no matter what at this point. Maybe Debo becomes, not Debo, Brandon Ayuk becomes more of a consistent option again. I mean, he was doing hot there for a while. Then he kind of faded the last few weeks here now with the switch at quarterback. So maybe he comes a little bit more relevant once again. I'm not really sure what to do with George Kittle. And that's a perfect time to talk about George Kittle because I don't have him on our next segment here. But what's your trust factor starting George Kittle week the rest of the season now?
It sucks, but it's probably the same level of trust I have with every other not top 3, top 2 tight ends. It's like you got to start them. You're not going to start George Kittle, but the problem is it's just the days of him putting up big games, multi-touchdowns, all that stuff. I think it's probably gone, and he's back into that whatever category, this hodgepodge of back-end tight end ones, and it's just just kind of stinks. But you're not, like Jib said, you're not going to start him. That's a hard pivot to go away from George Kittle. But my trust is the same, but my expectations are lower of what I'm expecting from George Kittle.
Okay, I'm gonna walk it back though a little bit. He has Seattle next week, which is prime time splash spot. So hopefully he could do something there. So he gets to start there. Week 16 terrible matchup, but week 17 he has the Raiders championship game. That's another juicy matchup. So I think if you have him, you got to roll with him. So you're good in my books, George Kittle.
I mean, yeah, I think John, you said it best. I mean, who are you going to really pick up to really replace any production that's still tight end 1? I mean, he's probably going to finish as a tight end most weeks anyway. I don't have a lot of trust in him, but I mean, like he's like a 4 on my trust level, producing big numbers. But again, everyone outside maybe it's 5 players or a trust level 4 in terms of tight end. So yeah, it's rough, but it is what it is for that position there. So let's get into our truster meter for the actual people that I came up with this week for the truster meter. First one up, Cordell Patterson coming off a bye, a big switch at quarterback here now. Over the last 3 games, he's averaged about 8 fantasy points a game. Hasn't scored since his first game back on the season here. Over the last 4 weeks, 0 touchdowns and 182 yards, almost 200 yards throughout the last 4 games combined. So, 50 yards a game or so. So how do you guys trust? What's your trust level in Cordell Patterson for your fantasy playoffs?
Oh, man. My trust level is probably not high. Again, it stinks because Cordell Patterson's, a running back right now that's getting touches in a run-heavy offense that is hopefully going to get a spark of life with a new quarterback coming out of a bye. But what he's put on paper the past few weeks is not great. Tyler Algiers still getting work. They're not running a ton of offensive plays, so there's not a lot of scoring opportunity. I think Cordell Patterson is one of those guys where, you probably play him in most situations, but sitting there expecting a big game out of Patterson like it was happening last year or even earlier in this season, I think you can't bank on those. But you can expect, 10 carries, 5 targets. You can do worse in your flex.
It's true.
It's a 2. Those matchups are pretty difficult. He has New Orleans, he has Baltimore, and then he has Arizona in the championship game. Like you said, John, I just don't like how Algiers is so involved, and like the touchdowns aren't there, like Coach Steve also mentioned. So with the rookie change, I'm kind of thinking like they're not going to be like the Bengals offense scoring touchdowns. It could be a bad scenario. So I'm kind of down on them. If you have them, you flex them, but like, just be sure that you just getting that like 10 carry the floor because he's maxed out at 11 carries over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Like I said, they're using Tyler Algier a lot in this offense still. I mean, I have him probably around a 4 or 5 range in terms of trust level. Like if it's a good matchup where they might be able to use him more, I mean, maybe a flex, but I'm not highly convinced he's going to be anything more than a guy who gets you, like I said, 8 points per game. So it is what it is, unfortunately. But On to the next player at hand here. And the next guy we have is Antonio Gibson, who is also coming off a great bye week for himself that he really needed, I'm sure. He had kind of had he kind of up and down. As a couple of weeks ago, 15 plus fantasy points. A couple of weeks ago, 5 or 6 fantasy points. The last 4 games, he went 13, 11, 6, and 6. What is your trust level on Antonio Gibson the next 3 weeks of the fantasy playoffs?
Not high. Not high. Antonio Gibson, it's funny, it's kind of the same with Cordell Patterson. He's going to get, 8, 9, 10 carries. He's going to get 4 or 5 targets. Like his role's not ever going to expand. It's not really going to go down. He's clearly kind of second back to Ben Robinson. So, I don't think there's much ceiling there. So to say that he's, my trust factor is not high. He hasn't scored more than 15 or 16 points all season. So it's just like, yeah, if you can plug him in your lineup, you could probably get 6 points, but he's not the type of player who's going to win you a week anymore. So my trust factor is pretty low. I mean, if you have him, he's a good bench piece. He's a good depth piece in case you have a running back injury in front of you or in case something happens to Brian Robinson. But overall, he's probably in a 3 trust level. I'm not eager to get him in lineups.
It's kind of league dependent for me. Like in a PPR, I'll give him a 5. He gets the Giants, this terrible matchup against San Francisco, and then the Cleveland, and they'll wrap up the championship game. Like John said, the catches are kind of saving him in those format. So 9 carries. Brian Robinson's just getting a boatload of it. And like Coach Steve always says, rookies always get a little boost after the bye. It could be the Brian Robinson show, all I know. So he's going to be a PPR flex. Actually, I'll kind of, now that I'm saying that, I'll give him a 4 on my meter.
Yeah, he's around a 4 for me as well. I can't trust him on a week-to-week basis. I mean, in week 17, maybe I'll give him a boost if he's playing well enough. But it's really hard to trust him as anything more than a flexible option in the right matchup. So, all right, on to the next guy here, J.K. Dobbins. And now he hasn't been bad. He came back first game after injury and put up 120 yards on 15 carries. No targets. We don't know the status of Lamar. He could be out as much as week 16 to return. And then Tyler Huntley could be out, which could put them with Anthony Brown as their third string quarterback here. What's your trust level in J.K. Dobbins?
Higher than the other 2 backs, believe it or not. I think J.K. Dobbins coming back showed he was healthy. He still is missing that extra burst that he had pre-injury. That everyone's showing that highlight run that he had, but Minka Fitzpatrick kind of chased him down, which normally shouldn't happen. I do think that he's a talented running back. I do think games like this can happen where he can have 120 yards and a score. And if they're going Anthony Brown as their quarterback, like I have a feeling they're not going to air the ball out a lot. So I think you could get a nice week next week, and then, he's rolling and you got to kind of put him in your lineup. So my trust factor is I'd put him at like a 5 or a 6, a little bit more confident than I have in the other 2 players we mentioned.
I might give him a 7 with the matchups, 6 or 7. I think he has a good slate. If the quarterback situation is bad, they're going to have to depend on the running. And I could see him and Edwards both getting 15 carries. Who gets a touchdown? If they get a touchdown, I don't know. But I'm still going to take that running back with the good matchups ahead of him and the workload. And hopefully everything goes right. But, I'm pretty sure you guys have been playing basically the whole fantasy season without Dobbins. So you should have reliable options. So you don't have to go all in on them. That's what I'm thinking. But if he's still on your waivers, grab him.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'm probably honestly somewhere around that 7 range. This showed me him coming back and having a good game like this really gave me a feeling that I could start him next week, especially against the Browns and Atlanta and Pittsburgh. And if they continue not to have Lamar, that's why that trust factor is at around a 7, because they're going to run the ball. They can't rely on Tyler Huntley or especially Anthony Brown to throw the ball a ton. they're going to probably have at least 2 backs go over 15 carries, which between him and Gus Edwards, I expect that to happen pretty well in favorable matchups. So I have around a 7 in terms of reliability or trust factor on him. So, all right, over to the next guy here, and he is a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, Gabe Davis, who has not put over 10 fantasy points in the last 4 games, and actually just 1 game over the last 7 over 10 fantasy points in terms of half-point PPR. With Miami, Chicago, and Cincinnati the last 3 weeks of the season, guys, how do you feel about Gabe Davis's trust level for you?
Gabe Davis is, with this lineup of I want to say no, I don't trust him. But then you have Miami, Chicago, and Cincinnati. 3 pretty juicy matchups. Should be high scoring. They should be throwing the ball. Chicago, they're just beat up on. So you want to play him, and you want to have those because he has 30 points in the bag. So the trust factor is low. I'm not trusting him. I'm not like, it's not like I'm guaranteeing this, but it's also hard to pivot away from someone who can, has that type of ceiling. It's really difficult. And that's what sucks about Gabe Davis. And that's what sucks about having him on your team and making these lineup decisions is the week you sit him could be the week that he puts up 35. And you're like, oh, great. This sucks. So I think he's one of those weird players where you have to take your lumps. You put him in your lineup, you might get 5 points, you might get 35 points, and you just hope it's one of the bigger weeks. So I'm still playing him, but I guess it's just dicier than we all expected.
You got a 2 for me, man. I don't want him touching my lineups at all because, like, half the season I've been playing him. He's been getting me the 6, the 9, whatever. It's not good, fam. It's not good. Actually, and Josh Allen hasn't been playing as well as he has. Like, he hasn't thrown for 300 yards in a very long time. I'm sure he's getting 1 rushing touchdown. He's throwing picks and whatnot. So, it's just a bad optic to me. But, like, if you have to play him, go for it. But you just know that, like, you're probably not going to get that projection that they're showing to you on your fantasy site.
Yeah, no, I think I'm right there with you, Jez. I'm at like a 3. But unless you have another consistent flex option, you almost have to start him. And it's weird because I know I said a 3 because I don't have any faith in him. But like John also said, that if that one game and you really just need one player to go off to win a championship in those playoffs, and if Gabe Davis does that at once, it's going to really help one of your fantasy weeks. But you're going to have to know that maybe 2 of the 3 playoff games, he's going to get you 2 points at best. So there's no trust level in him, but you're going to throw Hail Marys by throwing him in your lineup. So that's the way I see it. All right, next up on the board here, we have – hold on. Mike Evans. Mike Evans has put up just under 10 fantasy points in the last 5 games. And he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 4 now in the fantasy season with Cincinnati, Arizona, and Carolina to finish off the fantasy playoffs. And the way this Bucs offense is looking, it's not great, especially downfield. What's your trust level in Mike Evans?
0. I mean, we talked about it last week when we were talking about starts and sits. I basically trashed the Bucs offense, and they went out and looked exactly like I expected, inept and can't move the ball. And, as defenses play better, getting into the playoff stretch and down the season, they're just going to have a hard time. It just looks broken. This offense looks broken. And so you're not going to get touchdowns. You're not going to get big yardage. It's like, you're going to get your consistent 5-6 points. It's like, all right, awesome. But that's not in my lineup. We just talked about Gabe Davis. He's, could give you 4, 5, 6 points too. But the alternative is there is a ceiling to Gabe Davis. There's no ceiling to Mike Evans. Like if all of a sudden he goes out there and puts up 163 yards and 2 touchdowns, like that would be such an anomaly. That would be such an outlier with the way this offense is playing. So sucks. You can't start Mike Evans. You can't play him. The only one you can really start with confidence is Godwin, just because he's a PPR machine.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't know what number I gave him, but I give it a 3 from me. Yeah, it's just Chris Godwin. Like when Tom Brady gets into the end zone, it just seems like Chris Godwin gets 3 or 4 targets, and then they try to run the ball and they fail, and that's it. Like Evans could get like the deep ball, but then like that's kind of all he's kind of good for, and if he even connects with Tom Brady, so yeah. And Tom Brady's basically a 300-yard passer and 1 touchdown kind of guy, so it's not really reliable.
Yeah, I think you guys all said it really best. I have him at like a 2 right now. There's just no upside to his game right now. The offense and Tampa is just not throwing the ball downfield. It's a lot of things to the RBs right now. I mean, their RBs had 11 receptions yesterday combined. I mean, it's just Tom Brady's not throwing deep. They're stopping them from doing anything really downfield, and you really can't put that in your starting lineup because, there's, like John said, there's no upside. It doesn't have that Gabe Davis upside. So for me, it's like a 2 right now on trust level. All right, next up, I hate to talk about this next guy, but it has to be said right now. Jalen Waddle, guys. Jalen Waddle, I mean, over the last 4 weeks now, just one game over 10 fantasy points. I mean, it was an 11-point game. I mean, he really just not seeing much this last few weeks here now. What is your trust level on, Jalen Waddle, especially with the way Miami's playing the last 2 weeks now?
Yeah, Waddle's a tricky one. He's almost like an even more consistent version of Gabe Davis. I mean, it sucks. Like the past couple weeks have been real down, but he's another one that, like, at any point in time he could put up, touchdowns and 35 points and go crazy. So you can't really sit him. You just got to take the good with the bad. It's like, it sucks because at the beginning of the year, it looked like 17 points was like his floor. And then all of a sudden, it, like the offense in general just kind of comes back down to earth a little bit. And Tua's not throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns every game. So, but overall, the offense is good and he's a integral piece and you want to start him because he's a big play waiting to happen. I still think you start. My confidence level is probably a 5, but you're still every week. You're not kind of pivoting away.
Yeah, I'll give him a 6. Like I've been watching the games. This guy has been dropping the ball or to his own a bad throw. Like it's either or. Like there's no connection. It seems like I think if they kind of work him shorter in the intermediate instead of with these deep throws all the time, I think he could probably make more of an impact in the game rather than the constant deep shots. So I still, if I had a Waddle share, I'll be starting the playoff guys. So don't you worry. Good things are going to come.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping so. I mean, Waddle, he's only seen about 5 targets a game right now. I'm really hoping they find a way to increase that. I mean, they have important matchups where they're going to need to throw the ball against 2 playoff teams, and especially in our division, and obviously the Packers. And they need to find a way to get this offense moving. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that Waddle gets it done. I still have faith. Again, when this offense is on, I mean, they're on. I mean, like John said too, I mean, he's putting up 100+ yards a game when the Dolphins offense is on. So for me, Waddle is sitting around a 6. Like I'm still trusting him as a flex option. I don't know how much I trust him as my wide receiver 2 still at the moment. But he's still flex worthy right now for me. All right, and last but not least, this is probably going to be quick because we kind of mentioned tight ends already, but I threw it in there. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has not really been the tight end over the last, I think, month and a half now. Hold on. I'll pull it up in a second here. Mark Andrews. What's Mark Andrews doing right now? Oh, come on. Mark Andrews has not put over 10 fantasy points since week 6.
Drop touchdowns.
Yeah, no touchdowns in that time frame. Not just one game over 55 yards. I mean, again, it's just like Kittle. Your trust factor in terms of a high-quality tight end is you got to throw him in your lineup and just hope for the best the rest of the season.
You picked him high. You're going to play him. I'm playing Mark Andrews. But
Yeah.
Sucks. We don't know who the quarterback is. They're a day late and $1 short on Baker Mayfield. Such a shame. I'm saying that.
Well, if it helps, Anthony Brown did throw him, I think, his 2 catches in the game that he did catch. So, which is a positive sign if Anthony Brown has to start next week if Tyler Huntley's concussion thing is going. So, but like we mentioned, George Kittle, I think you guys will agree. I mean, with Mark Andrews, if you have him, you just got to play him the rest of the year. No matter how not efficient he's being or not of the elite star level that he has been, you just got to play him and just he's not going to give you any worse than what someone else is out there on the tight end position got going on. So.
Yeah, it sucks. You just got to keep beating your head against the wall with it, but it is what it is at tight end.
Exactly. All right, let's get over to last week's results real quick here. It was just me and Jibs last week. I had Corey Davis who got injured. Daniel Ballinger didn't do great. James Cook didn't do great either. What I say?
I said got injured.
Got injured, yeah. Everyone got on. Jared Goff had a great week. Tyler Huntley got hurt. There's a lot of hurtness to my top 5 waivers. Jibs, you had Goff, White, Hunter Henry. Hopefully does well tonight. James Cook. I'm sure there's someone else I missed in there. I forget who it was. It was somebody, but I'm sure he did decent.
It was Bob Woods.
Bob Woods didn't do it. He did all right, but not great. But again, as we said last week, last week's waiver wires was a joke. It wasn't great unless you got Jarrett McKinnon. It was a joke. And this week is not great either. Remember, guys, we do under 40%. And again, this is not a week that you're going to go out there and do much, but we'll talk about some top 5 overall guys. Coach John, who's your top 5 overall in terms of waiver wire pickups for week 15?
I don't have them in any particular order, but I have a bunch of names, but a few that I wanted to bring up. One being Joshua Kelly. I think now is the time of year where you need to start understanding who the primary backups are to major players, because if they go down, then you have yourself a free square at this point. It looked like Isaiah Spiller had the job for a little while, then Joshua Kelly came back, and now it's Joshua Kelly's backfield behind Austin Eckler. So I think Joshua Kelly is absolutely worth the ad. He got a little bit of work healthy, so there's signs there. Jordan Mason, another one behind Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason, obviously any 49ers running back can be super productive in Shanahan's system. So if anything happened to him, you get Jordan Mason back. I like Marquise Goodwin as a speculative ad as well. He's always good for a deep bomb. He scored a touchdown again, and it's not the sexiest name, but if you're really pinched, if you're, a lot of players that are in the playoffs at this point probably have better players, but he's a good bench stash because, a couple injuries to your starting lineup and you might have to be forced to start him. I am not going to pronounce this name, but the rookie tight end from Tennessee. Yeah, no idea how to pronounce it, but super athletic. It looks like Traylon Burks is down for some time, so they need anybody to be a playmaker in this offense. He got in the end zone, it looked good, so he's worth an ad. And then I'm going to say Brock Purdy if you need a quarterback. If you're in super flex, he's probably already been picked up, but he might not have been. He is, looking like the guy. I mean, we had to keep an eye out for that injury, but he looked pretty good against a Bucs defense that's, no slouch. So, those are the ones I would definitely grab. There's a few other names out there, but I'll let you guys go.
Okay. If you need a quarterback, God bless him, and I hope he's all right. But Mike White got bludgeoned by them Bills last Sunday, and if he's able to go this week, guys, obviously pick up another guy. Pick up Brock Purdy. He gets the Lions, and the Lions have been basically the best matchup for quarterbacks this year. 4 of the last quarterbacks that faced them have all gotten over 25 fantasy points. The floor has been 16 fantasy points. So even as Mike effing White stands, 16 points ain't bad, but he has a chance to blow up. So running back, Chuba Hubbard, he was a sleeper of mine last week, and this is his second game in a row. He's received double-digit carries. The matchup isn't easy, and if you think the Panthers can keep up with the Steelers this weekend, and that'll allow the Panthers to run the ball, good game script where you can see Foreman and him both getting double-digit carries. Even with 3 running backs that had Blackshear in the mix, I think he's just been beneficial. He has, I think, what he had last week, 17 rushes, 74 yards. and 3 receptions for 25 yards. He's being utilized as both while Foreman hasn't been getting the catches. DJ Chark, Steve's boy over there. Thank you. Shout out Steve. I wouldn't be I'll think him like you should pick him up for the long run, but like I wouldn't use him against the Jets, especially on the road. But he has been a revelation over the last 2 weeks. He has 11 receptions, 192 yards, and a touchdown, and he scored 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. So he's been on the roll. So look out for Chark, 31% owned. And speak of his opponent, if Elijah Moore's out there, I'll look at him too, because Corey Davis sustained a head injury, and we know how those been going on this year. So his week 15 availability might be in question, and the Detroit Lions are a top 5 matchup for wide receivers. So line him up. And I'm also going with Chiggy. This guy has been crazy, man. Like 3 straight games with 5 targets. Last 2 games, he had at least 4 receptions, 45 receiving yards, and he's recorded 10 points, double-digit PPR points in 2 straight games, which is good for a tight end. So go get him.
All right, guys, I like both your guys' top 5 overall. I had Chiggy too, 16 targets over the last 3 games, 40 yards receiving in 5 of the last 6 games. He seems to be very involved in this offense right now, and they don't really have a lot of passing options. I'm going to continue to roll him out. If you're in need of tight end, if you haven't been kind of streaming the position all year, I'm picking him up right now. Next guy, I have Mac Jones. If Mac Jones plays well tonight, then I like my pick for Mac Jones, because I did have Mac Jones tonight against the Cardinals last week. And if he plays well, I'm going to trust him enough to play him against the Raiders, who, are not terrible against quarterbacks and have allowed the top, high-end QB2 numbers or better to a quarterback all season long. So if Mac Jones plays well enough tonight, you should definitely go pick him up and have him as your start. If you're looking for QB stuff, you're still streaming the position, you don't know what you're doing with the position. He can help you out, I think, in a pinch. Who's next? I got Elijah Moore on the list as well, too. He had 10 targets this past week, 10 targets over the last 2 weeks now at this point, or 2 of the last 3 weeks here now. And Mike White's flinging the ball around every which way here. So if you're looking for a wide receiver, Jib's kind of mentioned him already. He's definitely worth a pickup. I have both the Detroit Lions wide receivers on my list. You can go either way, whatever one's available in your league. I want a part of this Detroit Lions passing offense right now. They're just flying on all cylinders. The offense, the matchup's not great against the Jets, but I'd rather pick them up now and besides letting your opponent do it, and then them having an opportunity to start either one of these guys in fantasy. And then last but not least, hold on, we have a comment. Oh, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. Last but not least, look who your opponent is in week 15. See what they might need. That's one of my top 5. I'm cheating here, guys. If your opponent needs an RB and you have a bench spot, go grab the top RB. If your opponent needs a tight end, go grab the tight end. If your opponent needs a wide receiver, go grab a top wide receiver off the board here. Grab whoever your opponent might need, because it's all about strategy. You might not play this guy, but your opponent might need to. And you don't want your opponent to do that if they have a good matchup this coming week. So that's my number 5th option in terms of top overall waiver wire pickups this week.
I got a quick story for you. So this guy, I think he's making the playoffs. He's a 5th seed currently. The 7th seed right now has been on the tear, scoring 150 points. Basically, he won his matchup. He just needs this one matchup to lose. This one guy to lose. So the guy notices the team who's beaten the the 3rd seed doesn't have a kicker. He has Matthew Wright still in. Picks up Prater. So the manager's kickerless now, and he just has his defense left versus James Conner being up by, I think, 16 points or so. So, he was like, I'd rather face the 3rd seed guy than the 7th seed guy. So basically, just cucked him. So strategy.
Wow. He should have had his tight end way before that, then, if that was the case, man.
Kicker.
I meant kicker. That's what I meant. Kicker. Oh, God. Some people. All right. Let's get to the last part of our night here, guys. Positional waivers. Last but not least here. All right, we got quarterbacks. Some guys on the list here that we've already mentioned: Mac Jones, Mike White, Brock Purdy. But you could also maybe try out Desmond Ridder if you wanted to. Matt Ryan has a fantastic matchup. Maybe the bye week did him good. Baker Mayfield looked decent in 2 minutes in the final 4th quarter. And then Sam Darnold against Pitt. You guys kind of already mentioned your quarterbacks. Or anyone else you want to mention in terms of QBs? Absolutely say no.
No. I'm going to say no.
No. But these are other options that are out there that have favorable matchups. So RBs, Gus Edwards just over that 40% mark. So is Jarrett McKinnon. I know I put him in this list here. But Juba Hubbard, Tyler Algier, Rex Burkhead, if Damian Pierce's option injury keeps him out longer than a week, maybe. Best of the rest: Travis Homer, Joshua Kelly, Zamir White, Jordan Mason. Grab your backups. Maybe grab your opponent's backups. Again, there's not much here that you really can go off of. You guys said the best in terms of RBs, but grab your backups just in case, because this is the time of year. If you need a backup, don't let your playoff teams get a chance to pick them up before you do. So, anyone here you guys want to else mention briefly or no?
Jerick McKinnon. I think he's startable regardless of the situation in front of him. Whatever happens to Pacheco or anything, I think if Jerick McKinnon's on your waiver wire, grab him, and he is startable every week.
Tony Jones. F you, Adam Scheffler.
No, fuck Tony Jones.
That's what I'm saying. F you.
I actually said the word. That's how frustrated I am with Tony Jones this week, that the Seattle gave him 2 carries in the game. Ridiculous. But
he started.
It's whatever. I started him in a few. I had to. I had to in a couple. So, all right. Wide receivers: Jameson Williams, DJ Shark, Paris Campbell, Elijah Moore. Alec Pierce, Chris Moore, Menzies, Devontae Parker, Tutu Atwell, Van Jefferson, Corey Davis, Marquise Goodwin, Ben. I can't say his last name from the Rams. What is it?
Skoranek.
Ben Sarai. Trenton Irving from the Bengals. If both Boyd and Higgins missed, and any Giants wide receiver, I guess, if you're desperate enough for a wide receiver.
Hodgins.
So anything.
Isaiah Hodgins been pretty good.
Hodgins. Richie James.
Richie James could be banged up, I think. I think he left with a concussion.
I'm not surprised.
But yeah. Yeah.
Anything you guys want to mention at these wide receivers I've just went through?
No, I think it's funny. I think there's a lot of, Van Jefferson's a good one. Chris Moore is a good one. And then we said Isaiah Hodgins, and then obviously the possible pickups, like those 4 guys should not be on waiver wires.
Right.
Jameson Williams, if Jameson Williams is out there, he showed in one play what he can do. So get him because God forbid he starts getting 7-8 targets a game. He's going to be insane.
Just wait until he actually sees more than 7 offensive snaps.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Just wait.
He's out there. He had one target for 1 catch for 41 yards and a score, and it was blow past everybody touchdown. It was crazy.
Yep.
Once he starts playing more than 7 snaps, he'll be really good. He'll be really, really good.
100%. Jibs, anyone else? Nah, so yeah. Again, this list of wide receivers, they're flexible options if you're in a bad situation or in deeper leagues. Obviously, these guys are a little bit more attractive as wide receiver 3s or 2s. So, and then tight ends, Evan Ingram's over that 40% mark. Tyler Conklin, Jig, Noah Fant, Robert Tonyan, Taysom Hill, Daniel Bellinger, Hunter Henry. Again, it's not a great option. We've already mentioned we all agreed on one top option. So anything else you guys want to mention to this group here? Or
Hunter Henry has another good matchup coming up. So
he does. John, anything for the calls?
Nope. I'm still in shock at Evan Ingram's 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's so incredible. It's crazy.
But like I said, guys, this waiver wire show, not the best. There's not a lot of great options out there. No big major injury running back pickups, no wide receiver pickups. It is what it is. But yeah, hopefully we'll have better next week in terms of waivers. Maybe not. Hopefully not. Maybe, obviously, because some of us would be involving some injuries. So we don't want that. But we're going to wrap the show up here tonight, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Anything you guys want to mention before we go, John?
Nope. I got a new episode of the FTLS podcast coming out, which is super fun. We barely ever do them, so when we do them, they tend to be a good time. Shout out to my co-host Brian. Other than that, no, nothing. Just excited for some football tonight and playoff football going forward.
Love it. Coach Jibs.
We got a good Thursday night game last week. I'm so proud of these boys. Other than that, go Birds. Jalen Hurts MVP 22.
Oh God, yeah. Can't say that about Miami right now. But again, thank you all for tuning in. As always, please go check out our website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. We got our rankings, we got articles, we got these podcasts, we have our playbook that's up there. A lot of cool things going on over there. Of course, please go follow us over on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. Also, give us a like on Facebook. You can subscribe to our channel. We're at 100 now, which is awesome. You can, like us on, whatever Instagram we have over there. Give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, and stay with us the rest of this playoff season, because we'll start talking a little bit more about Dynasty, and then the offseason is going to be here before you know it, guys. So thank you all for listening. Tune in on Thursday for our Start and Sit show. Until then, guys, have a good one. If I can ever close it out. There we go.